So I want you to do something for me. You're here. You found this. You're listening right now. I want you to do one thing for me. Listen intently from the beginning to the end. I promise that it's at the end of this podcast, it's going to be astounding to you. You're going to see something that you never truly saw before. You're going to have a little bit of a depth understanding of something you never even thought about. I really want you to challenge yourself to listen to everything, because I want to tell you the story of the forgotten people. But I need to tell you who they are, what I figured out about them, and what I actually realized that they were over all the years of me trying to figure out who are the forgotten people. I think I finally figured it out, and I think I can show you on this podcast what they truly are and what they stand for. And that maybe these people aren't what we think of people at all, but maybe they are something inside of ourselves. So let us dive into this, and I just want to show you, man, this is going to blow your mind. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Forgotten Podcast series. This would be episode 3. And in this episode, we're going to be exploring the forgotten people. And I kind of wanted to go through, in a general sense, how they formed and what they turned into, right? So we've talked about the story being wrapped around the idea of forgotten. We've talked about the idea that the allegory, the theme is the word and everything that encompasses it, forgotten, right? Then in the second episode, I really showed you that this is a search inside of self, that this is something that I'm exploring my own self as deeply and vividly as I can. Now, keeping those two in mind, here we go moving into the next theme, and that is the forgotten people, which the stories are entirely built around. And I want to show, as I said, in a very general sense, how we got to the idea of the forgotten people and what that turned into and how that connected to certain elements like the portals from the forgotten realms, how that's connected to the mind of God. And in some ways, we can begin the idea of the spirits, because later on, I'll start to realize, even now, that the forgotten people, the spirits, Mount Sorrow, and the Blight are all connected with the death of a god. It's very interesting. It's stuff that's still happening to this day. I'm still coming to realizations of all this stuff, man. Like what it all means, and I don't know. I still get mind blown by it. So I just wanted to have this as a disclaimer, just to say, we're going to be delving into some more interesting stuff. It's not going to be necessarily easy to digest, even for me. I'll be honest. But anyway, now slowly over the years, the forgotten people have changed dramatically, constantly. It's not something that they've always been this visual thing to me, and like the forgotten people are going to be this ancient race of people, and I don't know, that's it. Because the name that was given to them was so, I don't want to say bland, but just so open. For the longest time, I could never really nail them down. I just couldn't make sense of them. It wasn't something that I could ever like hone in on. And because of that fact, there were certain times where I would walk away from this idea of the forgotten people for a long periods of time, just never really seemed to explore them. Or when I came back to them, they kind of changed in my mind. One minute, when I talk about them, I just say there was an ancient forgotten race of people, possibly destroyed by the Forgotten King, and that's that. And I never really went forward with that in any other way. Then sometimes I would take it and say, well, is that a concept of parts of ourselves? Meaning, are we forgotten? Are there beings inside of us that become forgotten? as in when society around us forces us to different ideas, concepts through, religion and through the government and politics and all this bullshit culture. Is that making us forget parts of ourselves? And that was always kind of something that I enjoyed thinking about, like maybe it's something like that. And for a long time, it never really was solidified to me. These people are very enigmatic in my mind. But it wasn't until recently that I started saying, maybe the forgotten people, maybe we need to go back and explore where they came from. Because I made everything so vague and I just said the forgotten people in the forgotten lands. Eventually they came to Uandra. Now, this could have been because I thought the continent was called Uandra that we exist on. Maybe I forgot that it was that's the name of the planet. But it doesn't truly matter because outside of all of this, they exist separate from the world, the known world, everything that happens on this fucking planet. They've never really been a part of it. So I went back and I did a lot of research through my own work, and I tried to triangulate so many different things. And I said, well, the forgotten people were born into Uandra at some point in their history through a portal. Now, we're going to get to that later. But I do remember looking through all the journals, every mention of a certain group of people, a certain tribe, a certain, some kind of name. And I found at least 12 of them. And I was able to kind of triangulate where they existed in the known world, like what realms that they existed in. And from that point, we began to realize, like, okay, they have to have portals in many different places, and they have to have ways back and forth. And then I had to remember, oh yeah, the keepers are somehow connected. And I've talked to you about what they were before, and we'll definitely get into that more when it comes to the later video about the keepers. But when I realized the keepers protected these people, I'm like, well, then they're part of them. Are they just like an organization? Like, are they priests of a forgotten people, or are they another entity themselves? I don't know. And it was always very difficult to try to pin all this shit down and try to realize, like, where does everyone go? How is this all connected? But eventually, the keepers themselves went through a bunch of different changes. They went through many different concepts of maybe the keepers are actually bad guys. Maybe they're corrupted. No, maybe they're always been good and they were killed long ago by the monarchs and the Forgotten King. And they went through all these vast changes. But it was always in the back of my mind that the forgotten people were crucial to the entirety of this book. Now, it wasn't until relatively recently, within the past year and a half, I would say, that I finally kind of figured out the connection between the forgotten people, and I finally gave them a name. I called them the AOC. I gave them a realm. I called the City Realm. I gave them existence. I found a way to connect that to the story of the Titans. As you can see in the Forgotten series, that wasn't part of the plan, man, but it became a thing, and I was able to find a way to connect all of this and finally make it one whole story. But I kind of, in this video here, I really want to show you just kind of as quickly as and concisely as I can, just the evolution of all this. And maybe periodically I'll kind of cut in and explain it a little bit more, but this episode, we're really going to focus around the forgotten people and how they were born in my mind, and subsequently how I was able to connect them to different elements that were always floating around in the book. Sometimes things that were in the periphery, other times something that was come off on the fly, where I just threw something new into the mix, and I thought, well, how do I connect this new element to these people? And what does that all mean? Anyway, let's get into the story and see what it is. It's amazing to look through all this journal shit and to realize that I'm just been doing this fucking shit on this path, and it's
It's so fucking crazy, dude. Now, here's something called the roars of creation. The experience of the few in the outside realm is found down the paths of the cave. Not real, but where experience and memory go. So the lives of many are now but gone. The life experience goes into another realm. That is but one realm. The cave's hallways have many different realms. The mind of God, it's called. The memory, the experience. Each pathway is one single path of the brain. They did not know it was his mind. The path of the brain in every moment is captured. Though passing through here can be a bit overwhelming, for having someone else's entire being is hard for you only know your own. That is an explanation. See, I've always been obsessed with this idea of the fucking cave. And it really came about in 2015 when all of this information was hitting me, and I realized that we're transcending realms here. I realized that I've created the forgotten people. And if we go back to the white book, which is the first one, this one was done in 2012. And the first thing I said was the land of the forgotten. I said, this is a land of ancient keepers of faith, land and people that were long lost, wiped out by a long forgotten king in the ancient wars. People only known from legend. These people, these ancient people, were at one with this world. People of the land. Some say ancient aliens visited this land, and they saw something in these people, and they helped them. In ancient times, these people were called the forgotten people, and they lived with the land. And it goes into that and stuff. Then eventually, within this first journal, I found what I would always consider the creation of the forgotten people.
This next thing I'm about to read here, let's really keep it in our mind. This is the origin and explanation of the forgotten people. And we're going to come back to this at the end of this podcast, and you can kind of see what truly lies, what allegories truly lie inside of this little article right here. So let's begin.
And it reads a few different ways, but the main way is, in the now desolate land of the forgotten, there was a beauteous feeling felt by all, a shared passion sensation that was carried about these people. There was no need of word, however, nor was there need of a glance for the feeling between these eyes of said people. It was always given, it was always present, it was love. Unhindered, always present. There were no classes of folk, social or otherwise, just human beings, present and in the moment as they should be. They grew tall and they grew wise. They did not scorch the land with their greed, not like the Titans, nor did they suck life from this place for their own gain, even though their power was amazing, one that saw them as shepherds of this place, the most intelligent beings in all of existence. Their minds held a great power, one that set them aside from the mere existence of mortal life. So much can be said about these fair people. Their mighty mind would grow and put all others to shame. They did not fight, however. There was no need. And as their power grew, so did the consciousness inhabitants of that mind. Great did these people become, and great was their power in that land. There the king rose for his people, a response to their ambition, one who would lead them to a new age. He was not a malicious king, nor a selfish one, but a king who rose as a conduit for their growth. He would rule with love and took it upon himself to care for his people. When the other realm was discovered, it was a landmark of achievement, for it was the greatest discovery of all time. Merely a flicker before, now a foggy glimpse through what would be called a dream. The astral realm was to be explored for centuries. The secrets that hid beyond became clear, and the forgotten people would harbor them for their great purpose. Though in their search for truth in this astral realm did new beings appear, ones that would set about disaster for these fair people. For these titans would become the harbingers of their destruction. They would slowly consume the forgotten people in the astral realm, and as they consumed them, more and more did the fair people become a shadow of their former selves in the forgotten lands, until that place would become a shadow of its former glory, and the forgotten people would fall to ruin and starvation of soul, their bodies twisted and scarred, their souls possessed by the consumption of the titans, and in time they would be slaves of the titans. And it goes on a little bit more, and that's like the compounding years of the Forgotten People story. I don't know how many times I've written that down in varying forms, but in my mind I said, okay, I was always really obsessed with this portal. I always like imagined this portal being kind of in this grove, and it was made of like seemingly white marble, very ornate, and there's like branches and there's vines all wrapped around it, and I saw this light kind of shining upon it, and as the door looked like a mirror. And that was always something that I loved about it, and I just kept it in my mind, and I said, like, man, that portal, like, what exactly is that? Now, I'll save a long story by telling you it took me a long time to wonder where the portal leads. But it wasn't until about, again, the Red Journal. So this is around 2014. This was before August, I'll say. And from that point, I started to work with this other guy who's not a part of the book anymore, but he was the one who got the ball rolling. He was the one that helped me realize the Forgotten King's story of the astral realm. Once the idea of the astral realm opened up to me, I thought, well, that's fucking it, dude. We have to use that idea. That's where the fucking portal leads. And I would subsequently, through the years, try to figure out what to do from that in 2014. And there was a lot of stuff. So the king rose, who had highest authority, it said, and this is in 2014. He was not a malicious king nor a selfish one, but a king who rose from an early age. He ruled with love and took it upon himself to care for his people. When the other realm was discovered, that's when I had the idea that there is this other realm, it was a landmark of achievement, for this was the greatest discovery of all time. It was but a flicker, only a foggy glimpse through what we call dreams. See how it's still mirroring the same story? The astral realm was to be explored for centuries. The secrets becoming more and more known, I should say. Knowledge and understanding clear. Then they found Oros and learned to manipulate them. And they could use it to protect themselves and his knowledge. So this was like this age of enlightenment for them. And as many thousands of years passed, the Forgotten discovered other civilizations on Yuandra. So I said, that was the beginning of me realizing that maybe Yuandra exists in an imaginary place. I mean, you're going to see subsequently the birth of the circle and and all that shit that comes later when it comes to like the astral realm, the circle, Yuandra being outside the known universe. Like that shit came in 2020. That's when that shit started becoming form, maybe even 2021. But from that point, I said, okay, but where is inside that passageway? There's a lot of times that I would dwell on what the fuck is that passageway? Here's an example. It says, this is again in 2014. And I kind of wanted to dwell on the other realm. So I wrote the other realm. When you go into the other realm, you see things for what they really are. People being controlled by them, slaves. The man who looks to save the world is floating high above all illumination as they gaze up with many different thoughts. It's a small snippet, but what that was born from was what we would consider enlightenment, what we would consider the philosopher's enlightenment, right? So we think about the true allegory of the cave, and this is why I think it's really crucial that we keep this in mind. The cave was born from this concept of passing through this series of events will lead you to enlightenment. And that's like that small thing where there's this movie about this guy who he put these special sunglasses on and he could see through people, and seeing through them, some of them were actually aliens or they were lizard people or something like that. And that's born from the Illuminati kind of shit, right? That's where I was in my life, where I was realizing like there's another world that it takes a different set of eyes to see. So in a sense, there's a veil that needs to be lifted, right? It's very early on enlightenment. We all come to that realization that there's a veil to be lifted. A lot of us stay there. Now, the first book opens up the mind. Very afraid and unsure, the character begins to see what's really going on. The veil is lifted. The second is a spiritual journey, and we're still on that path. That's what blows my fucking mind, honestly. But somehow we came to the realization that this opening of oneself comes through the other. But how did I get from the point of the other and into the idea of the cave? Because I had never heard of, like, by this point in my life, I had heard of Plato, but I never even knew about the allegory of the cave until, honestly, probably, maybe a few years ago from 2024. It just never came into my life, right? So here's something right here. This is, again, same era. It's like late 2014 now. Slow understanding of the pieces of creation. Understanding the language in all. Finding the pattern. Unlocking the consciousness that broke you from the following. You must elevate your consciousness to come into understanding with the planets. It just says planets, fire, or nature in general. Why do you think the beauty of all takes you when you raise your awareness? And so we have this here. Realms, positive and negative. And the middle is equilibrium. And this is the matter. I don't know where I got this from. Infinite potential is in infinite space. So it's like a very easy way of understanding how the space shit works. You have the unmanifested and manifested. And the event horizon's in the middle. And in the middle, those two together can help you find God. God is the other realm. So I was like, okay, other realm, there's God, should be obtained in the other realm, but somehow I have to attach the astral to this. So I thought the mind. Unmanifested reality is the mind. And it's just like, then all these questions hit. I'm like, well, what is the tree of life? Why is everything a smaller version of a certain thing, like, fractal? Why am I learning this? Why is this, like, I don't understand. And it kept like swirling in my head. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? We're trying to figure out the forgotten people in this portal, and now we're on this fucking journey of like, what is the mind? The discovery, the placement, and everything about the forgotten people has been an all-encompassing journey. It's just been fucking insane to try to figure this all out. Now, in saying that, eventually, with these forgotten people, with this portal, you see how we just went off on this fucking tangent? Well, that's what happened, but that took a span of a few years. Somehow, in that point of my life, we would go into the next chapter. In that next chapter, somehow, that is where the cave was born. All right, let me read this and see what it is, okay? The loneliness of the higher calling is why I created you. You are here because I look to take my soul and encase it inside this other world, so that it may live on forever, giving life to this magical place. So right now we're trying to get out of it. This is the point in which we place ourselves in it, okay? I've made this mention before where I said, man, I was always stuck in this realm and I sought the Forgotten King to free me. Well, this is how I got trapped. This is like 2015. This is a year later. So probably late January, early February 2015. You see, most do calculations to try and solve everything in the universe, but I know that is wrong, for numbers will lead you astray, not in the evidence, but the loop of unknown. I look deep within to find the answers. So I am here as the creator of this place, the pity coming from the inability of even truly seeing this world. Just like love, it was pulled from an unknown place and formed, shaped, grown, matured. It went through changes and took many different paths. Once here, focused on so hard, now gone and lost forever. But it's always there in small parts. And the thought that it is out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered again. Love, situations, thoughts, realizations, people. This is kind of when I started losing control of the book and it grew outside of me. Self is that person you are when you are alone. That's why most listen to music or watch TV or be on the internet. They look to distract from themselves so they never face the pain. Most artists are always sad because they face the demons, not occasionally, but every day. You have to look at yourself, no matter how scary, and express it, feel it, and learn from it. See artists express this to give all courage. They show the pain by their own means or abilities. Life isn't easy, but you can learn from it, so you never have to come back again. One beauty is no one can tell you. Pain is the chance to learn, a chance to heal. You only need to treat your wounds. Who am I? What do I do? When and where do I start? Answers now. The sound is there, you need only listen. You are only hurting yourself, if not anyone else. You are the one who lets yourself down. And I question, who am I to most? That's at a point in my life in which I was starting to really lose control of the book. I formed the book from inside of myself. Then I brought it forward, and I started taking shape. And eventually it started taking its own shape, and I lost control of it, and it went outside of me. And in 2015, this is the point in which I was trying to find it again. I had lost it. I had lost the ability to stay connected with this story, and it went away. I'm trying to refigure that out again. And all those realizations that I said previously, in this forgotten realm, this doorway, this is the reason of my obsession with the door. Because I realized the forgotten people went through this and they went to Yuandra. So in some sense, I myself, as the creator of this place, had to find my door to access into it. And I realized, because of the help of this other guy, that would be through the astral. But I couldn't understand what that meant, because to me, astral just, at that time, purely meant the dream realm. That's how I interpreted it. The astral is just the realm in which you go when you dream. From that point, I didn't really put much more into it. Like, I knew there was more to it, but it wasn't something that I was sitting there like, okay, I'll take we'll do some studying, try to, figure this out. Like, nope, it just, that was all it was. But keep this in mind, at all times was I always trying to find the forgotten people. It's just been a long journey. Now, here's where the beginning of that came. In my emptiness of trying to get back into this book and to find it again, we have something called the void. This is the point in which I was reimagining the book. And here's the first thing I made mention. The Forgotten King is writing the book to get out, to be saved. Letters and accounts. As I was looking for the journal, the story, it started to become very aware to me that it was looking for me too, that the Forgotten King was. And he needed to be freed because it was reestablished back in 2012 that he did something bad. And then in 2014, my friend helped me realize that he's stuck in their astral realm. And from this point, I said, what do I do about that? And so I'm sitting here trying to find this place. And here's what I wrote. And this is what began the cave idea. The fears created around the void is done to give the emotion. So when someone passes in, they will die. Now, the void, was something that Kevin helped me realize, that there's this place on the planet, on Yuandra, and we might come to a realization from this. There's a place on this planet in Yuandra, now called Nosfota, that exists in the realm of Dubois, that is a void of a place. It is a desolate place. And in some sense, it is much like the Forgotten Realms. So I found this connection. I said, well, the Forgotten Lands were a desolate, destroyed place. So is this void. Never in my mind did I say that they were the same thing. I said, nope, the Forgotten Land exists in another realm. This exists on Yuandra, and it's also falling to a fate, a sinister fate. This place, this is all Kevin's idea. This is what's beautiful about it. The void is full of these spores. Now, these spores, when they attach onto things, they turn them to dust. So you could be walking this land. Now imagine Imagine it's like World War One, and you're looking at no man's land. It looks like that, but everything becomes covered in these spores. And if I touch this fucking dying tree, it just falls away to dust, and you cannot breathe these spores in. And this place is just hell. In the middle of this hell, there's something that me and Kevin created called Mount Sorrow. Mount Sorrow is this. I had a feeling like it's either coming from this place or it's not. Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't know. I don't know if this mountain is the source of these spores or a result. And essentially, it was just the center point of this desolate land, which became known as the Blightlands. Me and Kevin were doing this, I don't know when, 2015, 16, something around that era. And then I wrote this here, called The God of Sorrow. The start came upon a day swept in rain. You might never know what I speak, but you would understand how I felt. I never imagined it would start this way, staring away at what I could never understand. I am here in this life finding who I am, and I don't really want to do it anymore. It's as if my brain can't take it any longer. I learned what I learned, and now I must go. We are not all meant to search for the Grail. Some of us just need to be here and to find the short path, I suppose, and that's me. So I'm going away, and I'm taking sadness, despair, and loneliness with me. I am, or was, the God of Sorrow. I was here spreading all I know, to put my spin on this place. After all, without me, how would they know what happiness is? So I go as I am, and that means I take my life. And it ends. Mount Sorrow, the God of Sorrow, is a direct response to something that me and Kevin Kevin really was like crucial in the early days of this book. I had this idea of something called the spirits. And it was like, what if emotions are a spirit? And so Kevin was like, well, he kind of helped me gear myself towards the idea of each spirit having its own, not malevolence, its own manifestation. You have lust, anger, jealousy, hate, sorrow, all the feelings, the lesser feelings. These things I would eventually confuse with the forgotten people. And I still don't necessarily know. But man, I'm feeling it all coming together as I'm saying this, and that's what I'm already getting a headache. Now, all of that being said, we go back to that thing there where I said the void, the spores. Then I have here written long echoed halls of the ancient labyrinth that was the wonder of something. It stood tall for thousands of years, though now it has lost most of its beauty to time. Covered from head to toe, swallowing trees and vines of the evertrees. The rain pouring through every crack it can find. It swelled the wood and it warped it. All right? Now, all of that in your mind. You have the forgotten people from another realm coming into Yuandra. You have the idea of the portal. You have the idea of these spirits on the other side of Yuandra. You have the idea of this place called the Void, this horrible fucking sinister place that echoes what happened to the forgotten people. Then I have here the staircase. And that just says staircase, manifested. So we're talking about something that is manifested as in a portal / dark thoughts. So we have the portal's been made. Clearly it's come into Nosfota. This is where the forgotten people were born into, the AOC, what we would call them now. We have the understanding of manifested and unmanifested, the event horizon in the middle. Well, what was manifested from the unmanifested was the staircase. What's in the staircase is, how would I word this? That is the point in which unmanifested is the other realm, the astral. So we're like, okay, the astral realm, through the portal, we come to Yuandra through this place that's become tainted. Why did it become tainted? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And the next thing we have is you manifest into this place, and it's through dark thoughts. So there's so much negativity in the entrance into Yuandra. But if the stories of old are correct, the forgotten people came through, and it's because of Dove, and it was a beautiful thing. It was wonderful. And they lived, but a war came. So there's so many different moving parts that you can kind of begin to see why it's always hard for me to connect all these dots. The final story of the Forgotten is born through many years of realizations all compiled together later. I'm trying to show you right here how one idea born in 2012 and like all the years of like how to make this idea work. It is now 2024. I have some glimpse of it, but as I'm saying this now, I still have questions. What, the portal of Oapake is in Nosvota, why the fuck is it also in Gaivala Mountains? That's what Eris is doing. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Do I have to rewrite the whole book? That is, there's still stuff that I'm like, I don't understand. And as I say, the forgotten people could be the spirits. I thought they were for the longest time, and it makes so much sense that they are. But what about the Aeon? If the forgotten people became the keepers in the Aeon, and there was a war with those two against the Titans and the Aeniran, what are the spirits then? Are the spirits... So I could easily say the spirits are a result of the Forgotten Wars, that the Aeon fell into these lesser beings. Again, and I'm already answering it, so you're about to hear it. They became the Fae folk. They became the city. Sidhe. And what that is a play, now I can say this with all my research of the years, of the Celtic understanding of the Tuatha De Danann and how they fell from being considered I guess we could say the deities, the gods of this realm, and they become these small fae folk because the worship became less and less, and it weakened them. So we can in fact say that the Aeon became these spirits, and these spirits are what guides the Aeonic people. The Aeonic people obviously being those that sprouted from the Aeons, not the Titans, which created the Anaku. But we go back and we say, well, here we go, the stairway, there's some dark thoughts, and that's the dark dream it would become. It's like, okay. And as I understood this place, it's got to be in a mind. Why does it have to be in a mind? I don't fucking know.
I mean, as far as I can see, it's literally a mirror. So the world in which we're making here, if it's got to be inside the mind of a creator, well, that's obviously it's myself. It's like, well, the world's got to exist within my mind. And if I'm going to start to see it existing here, I have to subsequently take that as a part of the lore. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to separate myself from it. And in some ways, this is kind of possibly how I became trapped inside of it. Eventually I'll try to seek to escape it. And then other times I'll try to seek to find it again. But that was the kind of point I realized that this is in here. So there must be more to it. It's not just this, oh, we're making a story up and then it's kind of cool. And it's, you know what I mean? Like that's so surface level. We're beginning to see this idea that no, you creating this in your mind is part of the process as well. And how we get there is explored through this stairway, I'm going to start reading this thing, and it's going to talk about how you transcend down this dark, deep, deep path, and it leads to this crazy place. That place where the lights are now turned off is once where creation began. And it's kind of, I don't know how to really word that any better. It's just basically saying this is just an allegory of where this place was born was a space that exists inside of the mind. And because it is inside of the mind, it has since moved from it. And because it moved from the mind, it became this ethereal thing that now exists in another plane of existence in my mind. There's an empty shell of where it once sat. And this is the realization of that. And from that point, I'll start to try to really explore how to access it once again. But it's a process. It isn't something to easily do. And so at the time, I didn't know this. But there's this process to it. You have to realize the things along the way. You have to to gear yourself back into this place, this realm of the imaginary that exists in your mind, which is the crossroads to the astral realm. To access it again, you have to find the triggers that ceased it in some sense. So I think I'm going to start talking about finding this realm, this void, right? This place that's now in ruin. And finding this mountain of sorrow. And inside of it is this place that you can access. And inside of it are these halls. And in these halls, we find, I believe one of them is the Hall of Justice or something, the Hall of Truth, and you find these different ways to go into this place. And subsequently, they will lead you to the mind of God. And that right there is where creation began. So you have to go through the experience to enable to access this place. So I think let's see what he says. Let's kind of find out like how I imagined it at that time.
But we have the hallway, the halls of truth, the beckoning, the guardians, the forgotten king, and the whisper. And then it says, the fears created around the void is done to give the emotion, so when someone passes in it, they will die. The fake guarding is to further confusion. A place of enlightenment and pain all at once, for it was destroyed by the whisper. It was once a spiritual place. Now spores have grown as a defense mechanism. The long, dark stairway of madness and fear. Dark thoughts cloud your being and are brought forward when you must face them. Start in the Blightlands or the void. Begin the journey. The spores loosened by any who travel through, and they cause a psychedelic trip or mind-altering experience. The land was once sacred, now destroyed, seems to fall apart and blow away by touch. Endless death, trees and ash-covered ground. Spores and the unknown have given rise. Creatures having taken up residence, hiding, they wait for the prey. Once the land has lost touch with Gaia, it became tainted, and those that were suppressed began to rise.
Do you see how it's a kind of a process? This place, this what I'm calling the void, and inside of it, things are rising out of that portal that birthed this world in my mind, subsequently let loose a lot of dark memories, a lot of bad things, a lot of things I didn't want to face, a lot of stuff deep inside myself it was hard for me to try to handle or get a grip on. In the allegory, you could say inside of this was me saying there's a lot of these dark beings that have come out of this and lived in this void area. And these spores, which is, for me, the epitome of forgotten, are latching onto everything in sight, to which they fall and crumble into dust. Because that's what these spores do. It's like this poisonous thing you can't breathe in, but also it destroys and eliminates everything, creating this empty void, right? Well, that's forgetting. So the more I explore myself, the deeper I go, I come to this land of this void. And as I go through the land, I see all the ruin around me. I see these spores. And also these dark beasts are coming out of this place. So we're talking about allegories in which the exploration of self, it can get this difficult. And we go down the valley of seclusion, of self-isolation. And through that self-isolation, we come to this point of Mount Sorrow. What's in this sorrowful mountain?
There the valley of seclusion. The long pass surrounded by tall, looming mountains. The valley wraps with the mountain and leads to Mount Sorrow, the tallest peak surrounded by the crowd of mountains. The cave, an entrance to the long winding stairs, blackest of black, catastrophic stairway. You are led by the thin, pale walker, and you are shown the dark thoughts. This is where you begin to see the fault in your life. After a mile of walking the descending stairway, you come to a large area with black marbled floor and an unending ceiling.
When it comes to this experience, here's something that in the book the Anaku would describe this process. The riddle of the eye. Ascending into the internal realm is known for its righteousness among the Anakume. What was seen was diving into the beast to be swallowed whole and have the strength to fight or even solve the path that lay before them. Upon being swallowed, or otherwise called the dark dream, one is descending into the realm of the One. The warrior must find himself and become whole or one. A great spiritual quest. Solve the riddle of the eye. It was granted to the Anaku lords, and it says, down the vortex of confusion where the light is at an end. In the middle, there is openness, the taste. That openness, that taste, that is the down the riddle of the eye, down this portal, which the eye is the mind of God, right? Well, we go down to this point and we open up to this giant chasm, this giant hall. That right there is the middle, the openness, the taste, where the light is at an end. And it's just a glimpse, a glimmer. When you search deep within yourself, you get to this fucking point where you're at this base level of yourself, this very small, there's so little understanding hiding in here, but you're faced with the entirety of you. And once you're staring at that, it's this empty fucking void because you don't know how to explain it. You don't know how to feel about it. You don't even know what it is. But you're met with this great darkness. There is no illumination here because you've never tread down this place before. And that searching for self, that is the only, this, like right here, this is when you truly get to the point of like, what am I? I am in this perpetual darkness of my soul because I've never cast the light here. And what's the light in this place? And that to me represents the hall of knowledge, right? And let's keep going with this. Let's see what he says next.
Dark, you come upon pillars dividing separate paths. None know where they lead. They are the halls of the guardians. They were created long ago to guide the forgotten people, servants of the forgotten king, the original walker. He is now lost in the other realm. When the halls were built, they unlocked the realms. First, the dream realm, the place of knowledge. Deep within the halls, something unlocked was found to allow the forgotten to do, and I didn't write it. There was once light, though now extinguished. These halls of knowledge are not a place, but the mind. So this is how I was beginning to see through this allegory. I was accidentally stumbling upon the allegory of the cave by Plato. It is not sure if the mind of God or of creation.
For when the whole was found in the cave, it was like finding the portal to creation and the Creator.
As if they could see the face of God. They were in his head. To an understanding higher than their own, he had not granted this knowledge to them.
It's right here that we really begin to see, I think for myself, the belief, the understanding that what I'm doing here, it needs an explanation for myself, but it needs one to be for the people inside of this place too. So this world that's being made and all these things we're trying to explore and we're trying to understand, how do we get back to this world as the writer? How do I go to this place? And we see the forgotten king who's going to be going through his struggles, something we'll go through in subsequently later videos. But we start to see the idea that this is one and the same. The struggle from without is the same as the struggle from within, which consequently would birth the idea of the manifested and the unmanifested. So we have this place that needs this exploration, and through that, we have to explore it in ourselves, but in our story as well. So let's keep going forward and see where this goes.
Okay, so he's basically saying in his mind he created all this place as a project and decided to create a world. Years passed and the eras of creation had gone by. They grew to a whisper. For he gave them powers, knowledge, and understanding. This is kind of an allegory of me making this place and what it became to me. Because I literally say, think of it like writing this epic. You're a god. Every time you write the world, it becomes realer. Every character is being created. The knowledge you put into the story is reaching them, and they grow wiser, taking on their own life, looking to seek you, speak to you, and help you help them. Now in the cave is where the veil is thinnest. The realm of the Creator's mind lies there. That is where the forgotten king is lost. So in some sense, I'm trying to say, through this journal here, all that I said came to fruition. But the forgotten king is lost. And if I go back to that point where I said, the forgotten king is writing the book to get out, to be saved, letters and accounts. He's trying to become saved. I, as the writer, am trying to get into this place that's become lost to me. The forgotten king was always my link into this place. Well, the forgotten king lies in the mind of the Creator. He is trapped inside of me, seeking to get out, and I am seeking to find him. It's this fucking dance, this weird cosmic dance that we're on. And in some sense, it's taking place in the mind of the Creator. This is the place that Eris has to discover. The dream realm, the realm of creation. It's raw creation. No one knows how many realms there are, but it seems almost endless. Finding the source of creation through words. Who found the source of creation through music, pictures, mind, comedy, acting, creating. When we create and find the place, you are channeling God and become a conduit through your craft. Your craft is the tool to get in touch again, the tool to pull back if you see only but a glimmer. Very few can bring back anything from this imagination, but you must brave that suffering. That creation is suffering, and that is why the artist suffers. And it's your job to bring back that with what you discover in the imaginary. So put a long story short, as I'm trying to look for the forgotten king, it took the discovery of the mind of God in the book, The Cave, that is in the realm of Nosvota, which is the void now, where the spirits inhabit, and the god of sorrow is the guardian of this ancient doorway. This ancient doorway leads to where the forgotten people once inhabited. And where they once inhabited is a place called the city.
I think it's become clear that the forgotten people, the AOC, living in the realm of the city, beyond the astral, are memories. Like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, well, they're memories. Because if we have to seek them out through this fucking dark process, going all the way through, and I always describe it as, Nosfota, and then, this Mount Sorrow is where this cave lies, the mind of God. But that's self. That's going into self and going to the deepest parts of ourselves. Inside of it, there was once a group of people that dwelled there, or use this as a portal back and forth, and that's memory. So the memory of self that exists deep inside will lead you back to this like ethereal God, this being that's higher than you. It's kind of always been a realization to me, if you want to find God, you got to look inside. Because you have to look inside what he made. If he's in you, then you need to know you. You can't just I just believe in God and that's it. You got to find him, And so if he's inside of you, all this allegory, all this void and cave and all this shit, and with the forgotten people, which is the whole reason we're talking about this. The forgotten people are the damn memories of these realizations, the memories that lead you back past the barrier that we have around us. I'll always consider this the blockade of knowledge, right? Because the Hall of Knowledge is one of the first halls you find there. This blockade of knowledge exists in this mortal realm, but we can, it's always descending, right? It's like that Jewish Kabbalah stuff. I think it's Kabbalism, where to descend into, not ascend. You would think it's ascending to God, but it's actually descending because self is down, right? Through the deepest part of yourself, we can explore that which is without. So these forgotten people that exist in the city have been corrupted by these titans, though.
And as they were there, they were being consumed by the titans. A once beautiful place, slowly as they become consumed, they sought an escape, and it was Dove who helped them.
Dove, Prometheus, right? The freer of the AOC, the forgotten people, the one that took them from this place in which they existed and brought them into the material world. So escaping from the Titans' grasp, where the Titans are consuming them, the Titans that exist as these creators in the realm of the astral, right? It's a whole blasphemous thing. You kind of watch in the Forgotten series how that'll be blasphemous. But Dove saw to free these people and bring them into the material world, bringing the memories that lie beyond, the memories that are closest to God, through the astral and into the material world to which they lived. And a lot of things will subsequently happen, a lot of bad things, right? But my point is saying, Dove the conveyor, the freer, not their creator, but someone separate, bringing them into the world to free them. What does that mean? What are we trying to say with that? I still don't know. There's a lot to unpack in all of this.
I'm not really sure how helpful this all is to you, but I'm trying to give you, as condensed as I can, how I got to this point. Because if you're going to find out in the Forgotten series the events of Dove freeing the forgotten people, but I'm trying to show you how I got there through my own work and how that's helped me realize that there's a part of myself that is the forgotten people, that I am a forgotten person. The mind of God, the memory, the experience, this place which they inhabit is within myself.
Here's another little document that maybe can help us unravel it a little bit more. This one's about the sensitive. They are the sensitive people whose consciousness was so high that they tapped into the unity consciousness. They are the sensitive ones. They care for the world, and through the mass consciousness they found one another and formed an order. They are not fighters but protectors, and when one dies, they all feel it and mourn. There are few in the world and only 2% of the population. These sensitive are based on real INFJs, so they are wise, very secretive, and live to help and save people. They live in this world of secrecy, and the power of their minds can transport them to destinations they need to be. Never do they abuse their gift. It does not compute. Quietly living in the sanctum. And what happened to them? Nobody really knows. They are rumored to have fled to the Forgotten Lands, to perhaps live in exile, but no one knows of their true activity. These sensitive, these beings that I describe, kind of in my mind replace what the keepers are. The keepers are the protectors of the memories. So what's protecting the memories of God? Well, it's these keepers. But later on, they become corrupted. And in that corruption, they're used against mankind. And because they're used against mankind, these, we call them sensitive right now. Keepers, sensitive, whatever, INFJs. These beings will be the ones that have to snuff out God. As in, I'll read a story soon about how they found this void where the cave lies and where the memory of God lies. They use enslaved sensitive. But this next document here, we're going to be kind of furthering the idea that this halls, this dark place, the mind of God, is where the sensitive inhabit, or at least once inhabited.
The domain of the sensitive, the inhabitants of the halls. Though what is seen by the hero was not their domain. It may be seen the same place he walks, where the hero inhabits, is in the head, his very own, for he explores his own mind. The hero is part of the Creator himself. Eris is my conveyor. The lost people known as the sensitive, this is when I started realizing they might be the forgotten people, have long gone from these halls, these guardians. If the halls are doorways to other realms, then what's next? They are not portals?
So this next section here is the very early origins of an idea that I had a while ago. And this is Quinn from a series of stories that began in the 1300s in the book. And this is him as an older man talking to a young boy about what they discovered. And in that discovery, we can begin to see that this is the story of the sensitive and the corrupted keepers through many different plots coming to this mind of God. And they would begin to be in this land, Nosvota. This is in Dubois. And this is the story of how when they found this cave and they entered the mind of God, how it unlocked some darkness. And the subsequent, the story goes forward, but I just wanted to give that background. This is Quinn sitting as an old man retelling this story to this younger boy.
The cave is an entrance into the creation or the mind of God. Long ago, when the diggers found this, it had not occurred to them. For how would any know of this place? It is unknown how it was found at all, for no evidence now exists. But there are stories. Some say false stories, but stories that have lasted. This story of discovery of this place is being written by someone that I know, and it's the story of Quinn, who discovers the truth. He's the one who sets, he's the Bilbo, in a sense. He's the one who discovers the ring. Well, Quinn is the one who discovers the realm, the one that will become important 300 years later with Eris. There was once a time when the void was a beauteous place, a place blessed by the divine beings. It isn't known that this place was where they first settled or some importance had been held here, but nevertheless this place must have been sacred, tall ruins standing where mighty ones once did. There stood a mighty monument on the slopes of the mount, now Mount Sorrow, once thought to be some sort of religious purpose, this statue. Now we learn that it was not the case. It was to keep away and to hide what lies under the mountain. For they knew, with their feeble minds, who would covet this and find the truth within it. It was too powerful for any beings. So it was hidden away, possibly by the keepers. Ironically, the Forgotten King's headless statue stands guard, which is what that statue is. And here's the connection back to the Forgotten People. Many years passed and the Forgotten People disappeared. The lands became blighted. Fungal spores took everything. Keepers rose to power claiming to be guardians. Yes, maybe once they were, but not for long. They took to the land in search for truth. Man's greatest downfall. God knows how many perish along the way. When they found the statue, the captured sensitive slaves are forced to snuff out the power. And they found it. Something so powerful it had never been felt and never will again. It's a one-time deal, I'm told. Anyways, they dug and dug, and underground they found the stairs. No one knows how they got there, but when they went down them, these stairs had a power. The power to show you the demons inside of yourself. They must have traveled a mile down in the dark, catastrophic winding stairs for days, until it was like a sudden change of pressure, pop in the ears. The largest room ever seen, pitch black with ceilings that never ended. hall upon hall separated by enormous pillars. They came and went like roads, curved and turning every which way. Most died on the way of getting here. To the lead keeper, he called it a spiritual journey, mostly to keep faith. Many days had passed. He paused and looked away like he looked through reality. Then he found the center. We found the center. He thought, we. Stopping, he looked down, taking off his dirty glasses. That day will never leave me. It says, I should start with the forgotten people. It is time for you to know, for it won't make sense going forward. Have you heard of the forgotten people? Do you know of their story? No, he replied. I only know the stories of the beginning. He cut him off. No doubt you've never heard the truth. As he glanced out the window, he watched the raindrops falling down the glass, colliding, pouring streams. Pulling a book from his table, the book looked strange, like it was new yet old. In the now desolate lands of the forgotten, or as you may know, the city, there was a beauteous feeling felt by all. A shared passion vibe carried around. There was no need of words or thought. It was automatic. It was always given. It was love. It was said when the Creator felt this, he began his path of change and looked to create. That's dove. Unsure of what, but of something. He took light, which is a single flicker of creation. Clear and focused, he started. He began with the keepers, the original keepers of faith, guardians and first beings, not like you've heard of before, but higher beings. Then the lands of the known world were created along with the seas. And then he created his children. Unhindered, always present, there were no classes, social or otherwise, just human beings present in the moment as they should be. They grew tall and they grew wise. They did not scorch the land with greed and evil, nor did they suck life from Gaia. Their power was amazing, close to God than anyone could be today. They were the most intelligent beings ever known upon this plane. So much can be said about these fair people. Their might would put all others to shame. They progressed through the millennia, and more, their powers grew. They did not fight. There was no need. As they grew and they matured, so the spiritual consciousness grew further, from earth-loving nomads to sophisticated intellectuals. And the world grew too, land being found and people, but I'll come back to them. There the king rose, who would have the highest authority. He was not a malicious king, nor a selfish one, but became a king who would raise his people from the early age. He ruled with love and took it upon himself to care for all his beings. When the other realm was discovered, it was a landmark of achievement, for this was the greatest discovery of all time. A flicker, a foggy glimpse through what we call dreams or astral. The astral realm was to be explored for centuries, the secret becoming more and more seen, knowledge and understanding clear. This was only the beginning, for they found auras and soon learned to manipulate them. One could use his aura to protect and serve his knowledge. This was a joyous time, for the learning of another dimension was a gift given by the Creator upon his divine race. Many thousands of years passed. Then the forgotten people discovered other civilizations on Yuandra, spreading across her like a bacteria. Now when the Creator looked for aid to create other beings upon Yuandra, he looked to another. This was Oapake. And Oapake created his own people, though they were not as the forgotten people. They were not divine. They fought and waged wars for land and greed, spreading across Yuandra quickly, unbeknownst to what they were doing to Gaia. They carried a new emotion that the forgotten had never felt: fear. Though they grew to love their neighbors, the new influence of these people greatly influenced what began to discover in the other realm. He stopped and looked at the boy. What was being discovered there? Said the boy. When one travels into the astral realm, you unlock the potential. What could not be done now can. You are at one with creation. The world of possibilities and knowledge. You are never fully present, so it cannot gather all of you. So it feels strange because you are not fully present. You go with no intention and you are given this knowledge, but you cannot decipher it. It is like death, or what we would know as meditation. For through meditation, that is the closest to death you will come to and not enter. It is our home, our place where we belong, back with the Creator. Yet that is another place entirely. It's hard to explain, son. I cannot put it into any words for you to understand, for it is different to everyone. The boy asks, then how were the forgotten people able to explore it? It is individual for them too, right? How could they together comprehend it? You are smart, he exclaimed. The forgotten people were consciously higher than us, for they experienced together, collective consciousness, unified, so experience was shared. Let us not speak of it any more, for we will be here for centuries. You cannot fully ascend, for you must leave your body to do so. Other realm, or the astral realm, cannot be explained, only other knowledge can be given. It is a place created by God, a place of creation, a place of purity.
So in short, the void is the beginning of the discovery of self. Mount Sorrow, to which it has its cave, is the beginning of transcending into the truer self. Once inside the cave, this place where the forgotten people, or where the memory lies, is the mind of God. Beyond that portal leads through the astral realm, this place in which is a divider between God and man. And beyond that is where our true self lies. And though we have keepers that have guarded us and kept us safe, we call them angels, we call them guardian angels, we call them conveyors, we call them whatever we want. But those keepers, long corrupted, helped destroy this place. And so the search for self is the very same in which we could say the search for the soul, for the other realm, to be reborn. It's a complex process, and that's all we've ever known. And so we venture forward, seeking to discover that which exists beyond. But as it said, it's a complex thing. It's hard to decipher all of this information, all this knowledge. It seems impossible, but it can be done. I believe as we slowly release these stories, hopefully it becomes a little bit more clear to people. But I don't know.
So as you can see, how that's all connected. The forgotten people, the forgotten king, the portal, the mind of God. Like, how did it all come to be? This is but just a foggy glimpse into the years of creation of this mythology. And that was a few years of trying to figure this out, told to you in 1 hour. Eventually, we'll go deeper in, but we shall see what comes from it next.